Hello again. Here's some more island. Are you ready? Remember the kids have decided to set sail and leave the island again? Here we go. On day 28, 8:50 a.m. Row, bellowed Luke. He and Charla splashed through the waist-deep surf, pushing the loaded lifeboat out to sea. On board, Ian and Lissa heaved at the oars, propelling the covered raft onto the incoming breakers. The tide was going out, but the seas were rougher than usual. Every time they made any progress, a powerful wave would take hold of the craft and send it careening back toward the island. Will's cries of pain resounded from the raft. With the wild pitching of the sea, it was impossible to keep his injured leg immobilized. "We're hurting him!" shouted Lissa, her voice barely audible over the pounding of the surf. "Let's try again, when the ocean calms down." "No!" exclaimed Ian. "We make our move when we've got the tide." A breaker hit Luke in the face. He came up sputtering. He would have been overjoyed to postpone their departure until conditions were better, but the smugglers could already be on their way back to the island. Waiting an extra day might well be fatal. "I hate this place," raged Charla. "Getting here almost killed us, and getting away is going to finish the job." Suddenly the raft was in the grasp of a monster swell. For a breathless few seconds it teetered on the crest, looming over Luke, threatening to come down and crush him. He was frozen, powerless to move, staring up at the terrified face of Will, who stared back at him through the flap of the sun canopy. "After all I've survived," Luke thought, "I'm going to be drowned by my own lifeboat." His eyes searched out the foam that meant the wave was about to break. It never came. Instead, the raft bobbed up to the top of the swell and disappeared down the other side. The moving mountain of water rolled over Luke and Charla, driving them under. Luke floundered, kicking for the light. When he surfaced, choking and spitting, he looked desperately around for the lifeboat. Charla pointed. "Out there!" Luke stared. In only a handful of seconds, the raft was 40 feet away. Now, free of the incoming surf, it was being pulled out to sea by a relentless undertow. The rowers, Lissa and Ian, were paddling like mad to slow things down. Their efforts had no effect at all on the drag of the ocean. "Let's swim for it," called Luke, launching himself through the waves. Charla took off, cutting the water like a cabin cruiser. Her powerful arms churning, she passed Luke and bore down on the raft. Still swimming, he saw her heave herself up over the side. It was only then that he realized how very far the boat still was and how tired and heavy his arms and legs felt. An overwhelming isolation gripped him. If he couldn't reach the raft, he'd have to swim back to shore. Then he'd be marooned, alone. "Never," he vowed to himself. "I won't go back there. If I can't reach the others, I'll drown right here and now." The thought was like a rocket booster. His arms windmilled wildly. His legs manufactured the strength to kick on. He could barely hear the shouts of the others over the pounding of his own heart in his ears. He closed his eyes and swam blindly. If he looked and saw the lifeboat pulling away, it would mean there was no hope. Splash! Something hit the water, just inches from his face. He pulled up, and his arms smacked right into it. The raft's life preserver. He barely had the energy to clamp himself onto it. Charla and Lissa hauled on the rope, pulling him alongside the raft. even hanging on to the edge of the sun canopy. He was too exhausted to climb onto the lifeboat. Instead, he allowed himself to be towed for 20 minutes before working up the strength to accept his friend's help and clamber aboard. What came next had been carefully scripted. The paddles were tied into the oarlocks, pointing straight up. Between them was stretched the makeshift sail. Next, the flat wooden raft that had served as Will's hospital bed was maneuvered out the flap of the sun canopy and dropped over the side. It contained 46 shelled coconuts, tied tightly in place under a blanket taken from the old military base. It bobbed in tow behind the lifeboat. Totally spent, Luke found an empty space and slumped back. Even with the coconut stash trailing behind, there was more food than people on the lifeboat. Wedged between the bunches of finger bananas and the sacks of roasted durian seeds, he fell into a deep, deep sleep. Okay, that's where I'm going to stop. Stay tuned. We are just almost to the climax. Make certain that you have turned in your friendly letter. And that's it as far as work for this week. Remember, there's no school because it's spring break. Thursday, Friday, and Monday. No school, so there'll be no assignments, no check-ins. Have a great time with your family. And we'll start and get back to it on Tuesday morning. Have a great spring break. I miss you. Bye.